I came in, I believe it was June of 1974, just before you came. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I'd like to tell you, excuse me, experience I had in relation to Srila Prabhupada's books. And it's kind of a, yeah, thank you. It's kind of a example of how, we say that Prabhupada is not different in his books. So this was a very, somehow he gave me this name, Tapah, which of course means austerity, and Punja, which means heaps, a lot of austerity. So in this lifetime, one of the austerities I performed was that I was committed to a prison sentence. And I was sentenced actually to 25 years in prison. And 20 of those 25 were for the activities that helped build New Vrindaban, which was we call Lakshmi Rescue Mission, collecting the monies that purchased the land and bought the materials to buy the building. So at that point in my life, this is way back in the late 1990s, New Vrindaban was in a lot of legal turmoil, and I was convicted and sentenced to spend 25 years in prison as part of that episode. So I found myself in these very austere conditions, in these little cement block cells, and I had a small photograph of Radha Vrindavan Chandra, and I made an altar with a milk carton and a washcloth. So each day I would sit, as part of my morning service, I would sit in front of the picture of Radha Vrindavan Chandra, and I had committed to memory the 3rd, the 6th, and the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Completely knew all of the verses. Much of the Sanskrit, all the English verses, and I would, as a daily routine, I would pick one of those chapters and I would repeat it, just like an actor learning lines in a drama. And one day, I can't remember which chapter it was, the 3rd, the 6th, and the 9th, I had this, as I was repeating each successive verse from Bhagavad Gita, something dawned on me by the grace of Super Soul, and that was that it's one function of the mind to just remember things. In other words, just like, again, like an actor in a play, you just, by rote memory, you remember what the next verse is, the next verse. It's just a function of the mind. But there's another function of the mind in which, if you start actually thinking about what's being said, how profound it is, how critical it is to your own personal spiritual identity, that the meaning of those slokas takes on a whole different meaning. So as I was just repeating what I had memorized, another thing kicked in, and that was appreciation for what was being said. So as I said each verse, and every line of every verse, and I would move to the next verse, I was carrying the feeling, the profundity, the emotive response from the previous verse to the next verse. And then the next one, and then Krishna said this, and Arjuna replied, and like that. It was just, it was building and building and building. And I had this understanding that what Prabhupada has done for us in these books is actually deliver Krishna. That Krishna is speaking through all of these books, but in particular in Bhagavad Gita, he's directly speaking. And that the potential for developing a relationship, even under very austere and draconian kind of circumstances, encased in a cement room for 25 years, sheds light on our actual spiritual identity. And that is that if you can remember Krishna in any circumstance, by repeating and thinking about and appreciating and developing affection for what you're being offered, then it doesn't really matter very much where your body is. It's kind of inconsequential. It's insignificant. Because the whole point is to remember Krishna, especially at the time of death. So fast forward 20 years or so, and I often think, God, I wish I was back in that situation again where I could actually remember Krishna so with such an emotive response to Prabhupada's books that I didn't really care. In fact, I thought, hey, this is okay. They're feeding me. They give me a place to stay, and I see a little secret to how to remember Krishna by just repeating and appreciating and developing affection for what he's offering me. So imagine the position of Srila Prabhupada, that he's done that not just for some fool who's sitting in a prison cell somewhere, but he's done that for the whole world. He's made that opportunity available to the whole world. And that on his disappearance day, that's something to really relish. It's something to really remember, that his compassion and his kindness is literally dripping off the pages of every book and with every sentence. So it's not just an act of memorizing or spending a fixed amount of time every day. Of course, those are important regulations. But it goes so much deeper than that. So I wanted to share that with you. It's a very wonderful opportunity for all of us. The other thing I wanted to say was that, within the traditional way in which transcendental knowledge is disseminated traditionally is in a very much more intimate setting, in terms of a guru having just a few disciples, and very often in a village setting. And that what we're learning to cope with and learning to adjust to is the fact that Prabhupada wanted, as Bhakti Vinod Thakur wanted, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj wanted, a worldwide institution. And that, of course, brings with it very special challenges. As we know, there's so many controversies. The book changes, this thing, that thing. All these issues are always kind of floating around. So just in these last few days, one thing that I saw by virtue of coming to the temple in the morning for Mangal Artik and associating with the devotees who are visiting, is that the proof that Prabhupada's movement is in excellent shape is to be seen in these young devotees who are here. Their level of integrity and just the way that they carry themselves. I was so impressed with this. I thought, God, this is, irregardless of the controversies and this thing and that thing, and the challenges with the spreading a worldwide spiritual movement institutionally, that we're actually in very safe and good hands by virtue of the character of these young devotees who were here. So for that, I wanted to also thank Srila Prabhupada for, they are the fruit of, and the proof that Krishna consciousness is like the real revolution. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki